Are you saying that there is a right and a wrong time to rock? Yeah, I know that's from 2 episodes ago, but I don't care. I should have quoted it then. Peacemaker, final episode. And yes, I know I am a week late. I was in California at a Doctor Who conference. Yes, there'll be a video out about my experiences on that. Probably next week. I'm trying to catch up on everything that's gone on since I was away. So bear with me. But yeah, I finished Peacemaker. It's real good. It's real good. And the more that I think about it and what it has done overall, especially with the character of Peacemaker himself, and like these are all great characters. Let's be clear about that right off the bat. But to focus on him as a character, at least to start out, this does such a good job of examining someone who has not only a lot of damage, but who has done a lot of terrible things and is trying to do better, but is trying to do better when they've still got those notions, those toxic ideas, those horrendous assumptions lodged in their head that maybe they've shaken loose a little bit, but they haven't gotten completely rid of. And it's gonna take time. And the amount of self-loathing that can happen when you're trying to be better. Because part of being better, or trying to be, is recognizing how bad you screwed up in the past. And Chris embodies that really well. You can see he hates himself on a lot of very, very deep levels. And not without cause, let's be clear. But also things like having, spoilers, by the way, having his dad appear to him as this ghost is kind of in his head. That was brilliant. Because when that stuff has been hammered into you from your earliest memories, even when you walk away, even when you cut yourself off as much as is possible from the people who instilled that and encouraged that in you, or in the case of a show like this, actually killed the guy, that doesn't make the damage go away. In the hands of a lesser creator, what would happen is that him shooting his dad in the head, previous episode, would have been taken as the point at which now we know he's doing better, and now we know he's moved on. But it's not that simple. The damage lingers. And he has to learn how to deal with the fact that those voices, those ideas, those notions are still in his head. And will be for a very long time, if not the rest of his life. But I also love that there isn't necessarily a sense of helplessness in that. It's a sense of this is going to be a continued struggle. But again, tiny little thing that I love. I love that when Chris gets out his blowgun, he does hit the ghost in the head. And as far as his vision of his dad goes, he killed him again. So it's also not falling into the trap of like, well, you're so damaged, you'll never be better. Because if the ghost just laughed it off, that means it's something that's just going to wear on Chris day after day after day and probably eventually break him. But it's not that either. It's still there. He has to deal with it, but he can fight back against it. It'll crop up again, but he can do something about it. This is so good in terms of depicting the struggle of trying to be a better person when all of the old thought processes are still lingering, whether they were things that you brought upon yourself or whether in the case of someone like Chris, they were instilled in you from a very young age by incredibly toxic people. This stuff is work to get rid of, and it is hard, but it's also not impossible. And that is the vibe and the tone and the depiction that I got off not only the show as a whole, but Peacemaker in specific. And I've been calling him Chris more often than Peacemaker in this review because it has successfully humanized him to me. I think of him as Chris now before I think of him as Peacemaker. That's not a conscious choice of mine. I have realized in the course of recording this that I've been saying Chris because that's who I think of him as now. He is trying to become a better, more fully rounded person, and he ain't nailing it, but he's trying. And we see why it's hard. And so that's the meta thematic level, and I really wanted to tackle that first because I look at my analytics. I know at what point in video most people start to tune out or turn on something else, and I wanted to talk about that first because that is the big thing I took away from this. Now, on the slightly more superficial side, action was great, very well-paced humor. I watched the final episode with my partner, Liz. Eagerly picking up the helmet, but then just dropping it in the woods. Perfect. And the stuff that went on with Goff at the very end was also really well balanced. Again, it's so hard to create a situation where, like, you understand why everyone made their choices, and it's hard to say definitively, definitely good guy, definitely bad guy. I think under the circumstances, Chris made the best call he could, and I probably would have made the same one, but it's not clean-cut, righteous. This was definitely the best thing to do. There is grayness. There's hesitation. There's wonder. Did he do the best thing, or did he do the worst thing? Whichever it was, he has to live with it, and he has to live with not knowing how things would have been if he'd made the other choice. Because that's life. You make your choice, but you don't suddenly get a bolt out of the blue telling you, that was definitely correct. That's not how it works. And what I really love about it is he is the kind of person who, in the past, you really get the impression he was self-righteous enough that he would have felt that. He would have felt that vindication. I definitely made the right choice, but that's gone now because he has to be an adult. And he has to live in the real, messy, complicated world, not the clean black and white, everything makes sense and can be shuffled into simple boxes world that his dad tried to create. All the other characters are great, too. Adebayo had some great kick-ass moments. I liked the stuff with Economos. I liked the vulnerability of him. I like that him just saying, I'm going in the barn. Why? Because of this bag? And that's enough to get him in. And the vulnerability of him talking about the dye in his beard. Because, yeah, we all knew it was dyed. But that turning that into a vulnerable moment and making it a payoff so that it wasn't just a recurring joke. Like, no, the fact that he does this says something about his character. And if you haven't figured it out by now, this is what it says about his character. And that's not at talking down to the audience, because some of the other characters, like Chris, needed to have it laid out for them explicitly before they were ever going to get it. So that's the kind of thing, like, explaining the subtext can be condescending to the audience. Actually, most of the time it is. But if you can filter it through a manner of having to also tell other characters who would not have gotten it if not explained, that's what makes it work. And that's what happens here. Some very cool, very big explosions. Dug that. I was surprised that pretty much everyone who was still alive, as far as the quote-unquote heroic characters go, at the end of the previous episode, made it through this. I was real certain somebody was going to not make it. And, first of all, Harcourt kicked so much ass. I like her a lot. But you know what else I love? Something that you almost never see in these kinds of shows or movies? Physical therapy. She almost died. She got shot repeatedly. She's not just going to be like, oh, we patched you up, we stopped the bleeding, you can just walk out of here now. No, you see her on the bars with a physical therapist. You see it struggling. Like, they never show that. Thank you. Yes. Going through that kind of hell takes recovery time. And it's actually pretty important that that's there because I've already been talking about how Chris going through his emotional and developmental hell takes time to recover from. Going through a physical equivalent of that also takes time. It all fits together and it's all resonating the same way. What is so infuriating sometimes is when you take in a piece of media that feels like it has this message, but there's elements within it that don't fit that message. Either because the creators didn't realize it was a contradiction, or it was completely accidental, they failed to notice, or they thought it was just cool and they let it slide even though it was in contradiction to the theming. That stuff happens all the time. So when I see something where nearly every element fits the overall theming, down to including the kind of stuff that almost every other thing leaves out, and including it not only because you should in general, but also because not including it would have betrayed the theming again. Oh, man. Man, this makes me so happy. This makes me so happy that this is so well constructed and so well thought out, and all the pieces are buoying the same overall points, but doing it with nuanced characters, so it's not like everybody has the same character voice. Everybody is unique, but every piece still adds to the volume of pushing forward and hitting on the same theme. They're not all saying the same thing in terms of their dialogue. They're not all being the same way in terms of characters, but what all this stuff says about them and about their approach to the world and the world they live in all is headed in the same direction to the same united end and the same thematic resonance. Oh, this is so good. I am so excited for James Gunn's next thing, which I think is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Each Guardians of the Galaxy movie has been better than the last. Yes, second one's better than the first. And it's better because the theming is better and the resonance is better. And to see the level that he has been able to take this part of his craft to, I cannot wait to see what he does with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I know word is right now Peacekeeper's getting a second season. If they do, I hope he is involved. I don't know if he's going to be available enough to be, actually directing some episodes or not, but I hope so hard that he is involved because, I don't want to downplay the credit to the actors, other writers, directors, etc. But I see this as like a culmination and a sharpening of what he has been getting better at film after film after film. And I want to see what's next. And even if we get a second season of Peacemaker and it kind of sucks, which I'm not assuming would happen, but even if we do, we're going to have to get new opening dance sequence. Even if they keep the same song, which I bet you they wouldn't, but even if they did, they're going to have to do a new dance sequence because some of the characters who are in it didn't survive to the end. So it's going to be a new cast of characters, new people to dance, new dance number. So if nothing else, it'll be worth it for that. Peacemaker. I was so skeptical about the idea of this spin-off thing. It's awesome. It's so awesome. And I cannot envision a world where this doesn't make my best stuff of the year when we get to the end of 2022. This is great. What did you think about it? Oh, I would be remiss not to talk about the cameos at the end. Those were fun and entertaining. And I'm thrilled they got Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller in, but especially Jason Momoa, just him being like that friggin' fish thing. It's a cheap gag, but it's a perfect execution of a cheap gag. I love this show. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe. Patreon is how I pay my bills. It's how I was able to go out to Gallifrey 1 and be a week late with this video. Maybe this isn't the best video and form to pitch it in. Heck, I'm going to pitch it anyway. It's how I pay my bills, and I couldn't be doing this as my living without that support. But even if you're not able to do that, like, share, subscribe, all help me out as well. But don't sweat it too much. We take a relaxed attitude around here, and you can come on back next time you need a break. Patreon shout-outs. Thank you to Turok, Shane Ross, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Robin Powell, Pronobulax, the Poodle, Edelon, Tracy Scrabbit, Dharma Michael Doyle, Vincent Paul Bartolucci, Angry Caspero, Adam Lefty Taylor, Robin Moore, Shayla Gourlay, and Bookworm. You can support me as well. Hear me mispronounce your name. Sure, I got some of those wrong.